Oh, graph. Graffiti. In seventh grade, my boy moved to California. Like my best friend, he moved to California for a year. His parents got a divorce, and then they were like went out to California, and he came back and he could like do West Coast tags.
Oh Lord.
And I was like, oh. And we were always pretty bad, like on the train tracks and shit. And I would see tags. There was tags in my town. I would see somebody that wrote Break, who I never quite figured out who he was. And there would be Rise KBN tags in my town. And there was a Rise KBN tag at the end of my block, actually. And I would just look at it all the time and be like, that's the fucking coolest thing I've ever seen. Like, it was just so sick. Like, who did that? And I couldn't really quite figure it out. But yeah, I started writing graphs just by being a bad kid, throwing rocks off bridges and fucking just being on the train tracks. And then, like, I never had, like, a graph mentor or everything. I would see a lot of Caper, who was like incredible, and I was like, oh Jesus Christ, I couldn't figure out how he even like did it. And then so yeah, me and his friend just started writing tags really poorly, and then I moved to New York, and I actually got I got like there was like a big case on me and this kid in our town because somebody from the Boston Police Department like got like a vandal squad training or some shit, and then he came and he looked around and he's like, all right, there's only two vandals around here, and they fucking like did some crazy wild case where I was like in big trouble when I was a little kid, like all sorts of shit, and like and so I moved to New York and I was like, I'm not gonna write. There's like professional, awesome graffiti writers here. I'm like, there's no reason for me to write graffiti. But just slowly but surely, it's just like, I just enjoy it.
How did you come up with the name Electro? Like that whole electromagnetic. How does that even come about?
Oh, probably from. It's been my only name or word that's ever been in my head, and electromagnetic. It just came to. It seems to describe me in the way that I go about my life. Yeah, it's just electromagnetic. It's always been like that. I think there's I think in a Ghostface song, he says something about supreme magnetic. I just always thought magnetic was such a cool, like. I think there's some 5% aspect of it too that I don't know too much about. There's some religious aspect about it, but I don't know too much. But yeah, electromagnetic. I mean, it's an incredible force. Electromagnetic could be that highway that I'm talking about up there in that fucking trip. I don't know. It's always been that way. I wrote EM since probably like 1997. I think was like my first tag. It was my first tag, my only tag. And now it kind of describes a lot of everything I do. I feel like it's how it's just like that's the expressive part of my being, electromagnetic.
The faces sometimes that you'll put in the one and stuff like that, that comes from the trip as well?
Yeah, just trying to be, like a lot of it has to do with like trying to be as funky as possible, and like funky, like as far as like an expressive, like express that core of myself where it like feels good, and maybe it touches on some of that humor that I was talking about before, where people can see it and enjoy it, and it also touches a little bit on like branding over and over again. If you see the face and EM did that, a little kid could see it. Oh, I've seen that face before. And definitely the grid teeth for sure. The grid teeth came like I never thought about that before I took that trip.